everyone, I welcome you all to this video. Today we are going to discuss all about the most popular machine learning algorithm known as k-means clustering algorithm. So now let's take a look at today's agenda. We will start with what is k-means clustering. Next up, why it is so popular. Then we'll understand how it works and where it can be used. And finally, the practical implementation of this algorithm. Before we begin, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for regular updates from us.
Start with the very first topic for today, what is k-means clustering. So, k-means clustering is an unsupervised machine learning algorithm where the data is unlabeled. In this algorithm, the data points are clustered together based on similar features. In each clusters, the items are very much similar to each other and dissimilar to data points in other clusters. Now let's have a look at the k value. So, in k-means clustering, the term k defines the number of clusters that need to be created. If the value of k is 2, then 2 clusters will be created, and if the value of k is 3, 3 clusters will be created. Now let's have a look at how it can be done. The very first step is to choose number of clusters, that is k value, into which the data will be segmented. This can be done using the elbow method. It is a technique to find the optimal value of k. In this graph, the elbow point is at 4, so we can create 4 clusters of data. If we increase the value of k, in that case, we cannot see any significant change in the grouping. So after this, the second step is to choose random points, that is centroids, within the data. For this data, I have chosen 3 random points. Now, we need to assign each data point to its closest centroid. For this, we need distance between the centroid and the data points. The second step is to choose random points within the data, that is centroids. So for this data, I have taken 3 random points, that is 3 centroids. The third step is to find out the distance between the data points and the centroid. To measure distance, there are 4 types of methods: Euclidean distance, square Euclidean distance, Manhattan distance, and cosine distance. In this video, we will be discussing Euclidean distance. So, this is a distance between 2 points and it is a straight line distance. Let's take 2 points into consideration, that is A and B. The coordinates of A is x1 and y1 and the coordinates of B is x2 and y2. The Euclidean distance between these 2 points can be calculated with the formula square root of x1 minus y1 whole square plus x2 minus y2 whole square. The fourth step is to assign each data point to the closest center. After finding the distance, we can group the data points with the closest centroid, and in this way we can make 3 clusters. Now, after this, we will find the middle value of the clusters. Repeat. The fifth step is to find the middle point of each cluster that will become the new centroid. The sixth step is to repeat the steps 3 to 5 to get the most suitable cluster. Now let's have a look at the applications of k-means clustering. K-means clustering can be used in image and data transmission, as it clusters similar colors and data together that helps to reduce the file size, optimize storage, and enhance data transmission efficiency. In science and healthcare, k-means clustering is our data detective, sorting through complexity. In science, it spots DNA patterns, expediting genetics research. Healthcare gains precision, grouping patient data reveals treatment trends. Whether decoding genomes or optimizing care, k-means shapes a healthier future through insightful categorization. Ever wonder how network reveals secret? Enter k-means. In social analysis, it groups users with similar behaviors, unmasking trends in posts, likes, and connections. Networks come alive, unveiling influencers and communities. K-means is the virtual detective, decoding digital interactions and painting a vivid picture of the interconnected world. K-means clustering can be used for marketing and customer insights. Now we are going to delve deeper into the exciting world of customer segmentation and personalized marketing using the powerful k-means algorithm. Imagine being able to understand your customers better than ever before and tailor your marketing strategies to meet their unique preferences and needs. Let's explore how k-means can make this possible. As businesses strive to offer more personalized experiences to their customers, the role of data-driven insights become increasingly significant. This is where the K-means algorithm steps in. K-means is a powerful machine learning technique that helps us group customers based on their shopping behaviors and attributes. Now let's have a look at the implementation of K-means clustering algorithm. So now let's start with the implementation of k-means clustering. So the very first step is to import all the libraries that will be useful for data pre-processing, data visualization, data scaling and clustering. So firstly I have imported pandas for data pre-processing, then matplotlib and seaborn for my visualization purpose, and then import datetime as dt. So this import datetime, I will be using this particular library for a single column in the dataset. These import warnings so that no warning I will get. After this, now most important libraries for this session, that is now import sklearn, and then I will import k-means. After this, I have imported our dataset, that is online retail CSV. So you can get this particular dataset from Kaggle also. So I have done this Unicode escape so that all non-ASCII characters will be converted, and we can see here in the dataset. So now let's have a look at the description of the data. So this is invoice number, this is the stock code, this is description, quantity, invoice date, unit price, customer ID and country. So let's understand what are these for. So invoice number, this is a unique identifier for each invoice or transaction. Stock code, a code that represents the specific item or product being sold. Description, a brief description about the product. The quantity of the item purchased in that particular transaction. Invoice date, the date and time when the invoice was generated. Unit price represents the price of 1 unit of the item. Customer ID, now the customer ID, a unique identifier for the customer who made the purchase. Country, the country where the customer who made the purchase is located. So here using this df.shape, I have find out the shape of the data set, that is 5,41,909 rows and 8 columns. Now in this df.info, here I have find out the information about the data, like the data types, null count and the value count. So using this df.info, I find out the data type of the columns, null values and the count. So here you can see this invoice number, stock code and description. All these three columns are in object type. My quantity is in integer type, invoice date is in object type, unit price and customer ID is in float, and country is in object type. So now let's have a look at the description of the data. So in this it has taken only the columns which are in integer or float type. So in this count we can see the count of the values in particular column, the mean of the particular column, the standard deviation, the minimum value. So you can see the minimum value is in negative. Now 25 percentile of the data, this is median, or 50% of the data, this is 75% of the data, and this is the maximum value in the column. So this is for all three columns. Now let's have a look at the null value. So using this df.isNull, I have find out the null values and dot sum so that it sum up all the null values. So here you can see in invoice number I have 0 null values, in stock code as well 0 null values, and in description I am having this much null values. In customer ID also I have this much null values. So now what we do, we just drop all these null values using this df.dropNow function. So now this data set is free from null values. So after this what I will do, so as using info function we have checked that customer ID is in float. So first we will convert this customer ID into a string type. So why I'm doing this, so you can see here after converting customer ID to a string, we can use string methods on it, like filtering for specific customer IDs, grouping by customer IDs or any other operation. Now after this, so in the data set as you can see we have quantity, means number of items purchased, and the unit price of the item. So what we can do with these two columns, we can just create single column out of these two columns. So how it can be done, we can just multiply quantity with the unit price, so it will result in the amount of the item. So here what I am doing, I am just grouping by this amount with the customer ID. So why I am doing this dot sum, so that this particular customer ID have purchased as number of times the customer ID has done, so we just sum up all the amount. So it will just by using this group by customer ID with amount, repeat. So I am using this df.group by so that I can just assign this amount to each customer ID. So why we are doing this dot sum, so that it can calculate the sum of amount each customer has spent. Now using this data frame, so guys you can see here I have taken df_m. So this is a new data frame which I have created from this customer ID and amount column. And now after this I am just resetting the index also, and now I am just printing the data set, or you can say the data frame. So here you can see it is customer ID and this is amount. So this is my new data frame, that is df underscore m. So this is the customer ID column and this is the amount. As here you can see we have grouped by these two columns together. After this, now we'll do the same for the invoice. So this is invoice number. So what we are doing, we are just grouping by customer ID with the invoice number and dot count, so that we can just check how many times this particular customer ID has purchased something. After this again we will just reset the indexes, and now I have mentioned the columns as well, that is customer ID and frequency. So this will be my column names. So here also you can see I have taken a new data frame, that is df underscore f. So now this is my another data frame. So again you can see customer ID and this is the frequency, means this is for the invoice number. Okay, how many times this particular customer has purchased something. Now I have taken a new data frame name, that is df underscore retail. So in this what I am doing, I am just merging my two data frame, that is df underscore m, df underscore f. So these are my two data frames. First is this and second is this. So on customer ID I am doing this because this is the common column. How I am doing this? I am doing this inner. How means inner join. After this I have printed the data frame. So here you can see this is customer ID, amount and the frequency. Now this is my new data frame, that is df of retail. So now this invoice date we have, so it is in this format. Now we cannot, for this particular format we cannot perform some operations on this. So what we are doing, we are just changing into this particular format so that we can perform some operations on my this particular repeat. So here you can see this is useful for performing various date related operations and analysis on the data. So with this pd.to date time I can convert this particular column into this format. So that's why I have imported that date time library. Now I will find out the maximum value in this particular column, that is invoice date. So here you can see this is the maximum column. So this is the maximum date which I have in the data set. So you can see compute the maximum date to know the last transaction date. So in the data set this is the date when we have a last transaction. So after this what I am doing, so here I am just finding out the difference between the maximum date and the transaction date. So here you can see I have created a new column, that is df of dif for difference. Here I am finding out the difference between maximum date and the df of invoice date. This is for each customer ID. So here you can see 373 days, means this much days ago this particular customer ID has purchased something. After this I will just again create a new data frame. So this is my df of p. So here I am applying this dot group by function over the customer ID and the difference column. Okay, and this is dot min, so that we can find out the minimum value. So you can see compute last transaction date to get the recency of customers. Means recency means when the customer has purchased something. So now this is my customer ID and this is the days. So this customer ID has purchased something 1 day ago. This customer ID has purchased something 74 days ago, and so on. Now from this particular column, here you can see I am just having this days also and the timing also. So using this I will just extract the number of days. So you can see I have just mentioned here df of p dif, that is my column name, dot dt dot days. So using this it will remove this particular thing from here and it will show us only the number of days. After this, now this is my df of retail, this is my final data frame. So here I will just merge. So I have already created this df of retail previously, and this particular, this is for this date. So I have just merged this also, and again on customer ID and again inner join. So now my column names will be customer ID, amount, frequency and recency. So here you can see I have created a new data frame. So this is my final data frame on which I will be applying some model. So here I have checked the shape also for this data frame, that is 4373 rows and 4 columns. So after this I will just find out the outliers as well. So I have taken attributes, that is amount, frequency and recency, and this particular line for just specifying the figure size, and here SNS dot box plot. So I am using cbond to create a box plot, and in data I have given my df of retail attributes because here you can see I have already mentioned the attributes which I want to take. So here you can see this orient v is set the orientation of the box plot to vertical. After this we have palette 2 also, that is specify the color palette. Now vis 1.5, this will specify the length of the whiskers. Now this saturation also, saturation is 1, this controls the saturation of the colors, and this width 0.7, that is for the widths of the boxes. After this I have given the title, the Y label and the X label. So here you can see this is my box plot. So in amount column also we are having so many outliers. Here also it is in frequency as well and in recency as well. So now we cannot just use this particular data frame because this contains some outliers. So we'll just remove the outliers. So how to do this? So for this thing we just find out the quartile. This is my first quartile, this is my third quartile. So df of retail, this is for amount column, you can see amount dot quantile, that is 0.05. So it will calculate the 5th percentile, that is q1 of the amount attribute. Again for this q3, this will just find out the 95 percentile, that is q3, and this is for also amount column. Now I will just find out the IQR, that is interquartile range. So how can I find this IQR, that is q3 minus q1. So now df of retail, so means I am storing in the particular data set only, that is my original data set. So df of retail, inside this I am specifying conditions, two conditions. So all the columns should fulfill these two conditions, then it will be stored in the data frame. So here amount column should be greater than q1 minus 1.5 multiplied by IQR. So this is the formula to find out the lower range. Means below this lower range we will not consider the values, and upper this higher range we will not consider the values. Okay, means that will consider as the outliers. So here you can see this is also like for amount, means this should be true and this also should be true. So in this column if the values are greater than the lower limit, and so here you can see this is my lower range. So if the values in amount column are greater than this particular lower range and lower than this particular higher range, so means that value I will consider in my data frame. So same thing I will do for recency also and for frequency also. Means in my original data frame, that is my final data frame df of retail, in this I have just all the values which are greater than this and lower than this. Here also lower than this particular value and greater than this value. I hope this is clear. So now I have removed the outliers. So let's check the shape also. So now you can see it is 4294 rows and 4 columns. So before removing outliers, the shape was 4373 rows and 4 columns. So you can see outliers are removed this time and the shape has been reduced. After this, we will just rescaling the attributes. So here you can see feature scaling is important for various machine learning algorithms that are sensitive to the scale of input features, ensuring that each feature contributes equally to the analysis or model training. So for this I have taken a new data frame, that is df1. So I am taking amount, frequency and recency column. So now using this standard scaler, this library also I have imported. So what I am doing, I am just fitting it into scaler, and scalar.fit transform this df1. So I have just scaled these three values, means at a same range I have taken all these three columns. Now I will just check the shape for this also, that is this, and here you can see I have just print the data frame and these are my values which are scaled this time. So after this, here you can see again what I am doing, I am converting this into a data frame and my data frame name is df retail scaled. So column name I have given, that is amount, frequency, recency. So these are my column names and this is my scaled data frame. So this is the most important thing in this code because here we are finding out the k value. So how we can do this? First I am taking this ssd equals to empty list. So why I am doing this? Creating an empty list ssd to store the sum of square distance for different values of k. Okay, Now range and clusters means my clusters will be in this range 0 to 8. Now for num clusters in this range, k means equals to k means my num clusters will be this and maximum iterations will be 50, means 50 times I will just find out that I have taken a correct centroid or not. After this I will just fit this model into my k means and I will just append this k means inertia into SSD. So SSD is an empty list, so here it will just append all the values. So what is inertia? Inertia provides that how tightly the data points are in a clustered around their centroid. So after this I just plot the graph, that is for a line plot, and in this range and clusters and for SSD. So here you can see this is my elbow plot. Let me reduce the size. So here you can see I am having this bend, sharp bend at 3 and also at 4, but this is not a sharp bend. So at 3 we are having a very good sharp bend. So we can consider 3 number of clusters and we can say that we can create 3 clusters from the data. So after this the final model with k3 means 3 number of clusters. So again in k means I have defined k means n clusters equals to 3 and again maximum iteration is 50. So again I have fitted this scaled data frame into my k means. So let's check the labels also. So here you can see we are having 0, 1 and 2, means these are my cluster labels 0, 1, 2. Now assign the labels. So in retail, that is DF of retail, that was my original data frame. So I have created a new column that is customer ID and equals to k means labels, means these labels I have assigned to my column, that is a new column. So here you can see this first customer ID belongs to this 0th cluster, the second cluster ID belongs to second cluster, and the third customer ID belongs to my first cluster. So now let's check number of values in each clusters. So here you can see I have just taken value count ascending equals to true. So in this the second cluster have 499 values, 0th cluster have 1068 values, and first cluster have 2000. Repeat. So here you can see two cluster, or you can see second cluster has 499 values, 0th cluster has 1068 values, and first cluster have 2727 values. So using this ilog, I am choosing all the rows and column number first and third. So which column I am choosing? This first column, amount column, and third one, recency. Means between these two columns I will just create clusters. So dot values, and here in X I have just stored all the values from these two columns. So now yk means equals to k means dot fit predict X. So these two columns I have just put it in my y means. So this output you can see is from this particular line. Y means double equals to 0, 0. So this 0 is for the cluster and 0 is for the this particular column, 0th column. So let me mention here, first 0 is for cluster and the second 0 is for column. Which column? This 0th column. Okay, because right now I am taking this X. So X has only two columns. So this is for 0th and this is for first. So why this is true, false, false, true? Because it will check that whether the value of the data frame belongs to 0th cluster. If it is, yes, it is true. If the value does not belongs to this cluster, that is 0th cluster, it will be false. Now we will just visualize the clusters. So how we can do this? So plt.figure, so we have mentioned here figure size, SNS is scatter plot, and the values will be x of y, k means 0 of 0. So here you can see this is for true, false, false, true. Okay, so this is my 0th cluster and 0th column. This is my first cluster and 0th column again. This is my second cluster, this is my third cluster. So now let's have a look at the visualization of clusters. So here you can see this is for figure size of the plot. Now SNS.scatter plot, x of yk means equals to 0, 0. So here you can see this is for the 0th cluster and 0th column. Now this is for first cluster, this is for second cluster, and all these y values I have taken for 0th column, and here I have taken for first column. Again the cluster value will be same, that is 0, 1, 2. So now color I have defined yellow, this is for the data. This also blue color, this also green color. Now labeled cluster 1, cluster 2, cluster 3, and the size of this is 50. So after this, plt.x label I have defined as amount, y label I have defined as recency. So here you can see I have taken this last code that is for the centroid, or you can see the center of the data. So here you can see I have taken 0 to 3, that is my clusters, and this is for the 0th column. Again 0 to 3 for my clusters, and this is for the first column. Color I have defined here red, and the label is centroids, and size will be 200 and marker will be S. So let's run this cell and have a look. Okay, so here you can see this is my final output, that is cluster. So here you can see, so in this you can see these all yellow dots are for cluster 1, all these blue dots are for cluster 2, and these green dots are for cluster 3, and the red dots you can see that red squares, this is for the centroids of these values of this particular clusters. So this is the final output. Here you can see we have clustered all these values based on the features, and here I have taken amount and recency, means these two columns. So for these particular two columns we have created a scatter plot to show clustering. I hope this is quite clear, and thank you so much for being in this video. Thank you so much for watching this video.
Just a quick info guys, Intellipaat offers executive post-graduation certification program in data science and machine learning in collaboration with iHub Divya Samparka, IIT Roorkee and Intellipaat. Through this course, you will learn a multitude of tools used in the industry such as SQL, Python, machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence and computer vision from the esteemed IIT Roorkee faculties and industry experts. With this course, we have already helped thousands of professionals in successful career transition. You can check out their testimonials on our Achievers channel, whose link is given in the description below. Without a doubt, this course can set your career to new heights, so visit the course page link given in the description and take the first steps towards a career growth in the field of data science and machine learning.